morning to everyone. My name is Giulia and I represent the European Vocational Training Association, EVTA. Today I'm here to talk about the social utility model and the SOLITY benchmarking tool in order to explain how it can support vocational education and training providers to improve their governance in terms of inclusiveness in our society. First, let's explore the meaning of social utility. When we started this journey, we came across the difficulty of identifying a widely accepted definition in Europe, especially if we look at vocational education and training. It took a while to compare and discuss the differences and find an agreement between the different partners and the international experts who involved in this process. However, in the spirit of the European cooperation, we finally succeeded and find a common shared definition that you can see in this slide. A social utility actor or activity is any organization or action that participates in the economic dynamics of a territory, meaning that it contributes to the sustainable social integration and development of people by increasing their ability to act and interact with their environment. As it is, social utility takes into account vulnerable groups, contributes to social cohesion by fighting exclusion and inequality, and strengthens people's autonomy. If we apply this definition to vocational education and training, we can clearly see how broad the power of training provider is when it comes to influencing policy and decision makers at a local, regional, and national level, which is because training providers play a key role in the socio-economic development of our current societies. What I would really like to stress is that SOLITY is a project developed by VET providers for VET providers. It refers to ecosystems of social utility that VET providers and other relevant stakeholders operate together. And the results can also be determinant for policymakers and for funders of training activities in general. The model represents an attractive evaluation approach based on experience. It gives the opportunity to VET institutions to undertake a self-assessment of their strengths and their weaknesses. Recognizing that not all VET organizations have the same issues, same needs, and the same opportunities to work on the evaluation of their level of social utility, the model proposes a comprehensive evaluation approach through a very practical tool. By completing the SOLITY benchmarking tool, VET providers are able to analyze their social impact, gather intangible evidence in the results of their activities in order to strengthen their dialogue with policymakers and promote the quality of their services to the general public. What is also important to notice is that the SOLITY benchmarking tool is free and easy to use. It has some similarities with the SELFIE tool developed by the European Commission for the self-assessment of the digital competencies. Indeed, we like to say that using the SOLITY benchmarking tool is like taking a selfie, as it allows VET providers to have a snapshot of their performances compared to the 5 common and fundamental development areas of the sector that we have identified through the study of social utility. Talking in metaphor, the SOLITY benchmarking tool serves as a flash, a zoom, so that aspects considered intangible become clear and measurable. When talking about VET excellence and inclusiveness, its innovative approach lies on its capacity to connect with concrete data the economic performance of a VET provider to the social impact and the fallout of its work. This is done according to specific measurable indicators and to the message that these indicators are not static but can be improved over time. The SOLITY framework has identified 5 main axes as pillars of the social utility, but there are 2 in particular which are of relevance to the topic of this workshop. And these are axis number 1, activities in favor of return to employment, and axis number 3, activities in favor to social inclusion. But what are the benefits of VET providers undergoing their self-assessment? We can definitely see many of them in terms of employability, inclusion, enhancing diversity, and excellence. Now, let's observe how these macro subjects strongly influence social inclusion and how SOLITY can help to deepen these connections and make them easily visible, accessible, and comparable. The first subject I would like to explore with you is inclusion, intended as fighting exclusion and social inequalities. Through the SOLITY tool, VET providers can analyze the benefits of their practices to foster the inclusion of categories at risk. They can indeed contribute to providing access to the labour market for those people far from employment by putting in place concrete actions to increase integration rates in the labour market and in the society. The indicators that we have identified under Axis 3 cover a broad group of vulnerable people, like people with disabilities, people not in employment, education and training, migrants, refugees, women, seniors, and even youth at risk of dropout. Let's consider a couple of indicators under the axis number 3. For example, success rate of courses tailored to migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. The success rate of migrants and refugees is definitely a good starting point towards the socioeconomic inclusion of these people, as obtaining a qualification increases their opportunities to find a decent job. Let's see other couple of indicators. Integration of trainees with disabilities and integration of trainees with disabilities in jobs after training. These two are very connected. We know that people with disabilities are more exposed to unemployment for different reasons. In this case, VET providers act as agents of inclusion in the educational system and in the labour market. And these indicators are the proof of it. The second macro subject impacted by SOLITY is employability, intended as the ability to gain initial employment, maintain employment, and obtain new employment if required. By analyzing indicators not only linked to the employment rate in the medium term, VET providers can find an answer to key questions related to employability. Let's have a look at another indicators identified under axis number 1. I choose the indicator length of internships in courses that lead to a qualification. This indicator shows the importance of internships in the training path, which is beneficial both for trainees and for training organizations. For trainees, it makes it possible to become more professional by comparing skills acquired during training with the reality of the company and to improve their access to employment opportunities. For training organizations, it allows them to adjust the learning process in the training program and improve trainees' employment ratios. Third macro topic is announcing diversity, meant as a way of appreciating the differences between people and considering differences as assets for the socioeconomic development of our societies. This macro topic strengthens and further qualifies the concept of social inclusion. Our SOLITY framework does not foresee a specific axis addressing this subject, but several relevant indicators in this sense are transversely present in all axes of the model. Only to quote some of them, for example, in axis number 3, we can find indicators like senior participation, women in management, female participation. In axis number 5, which is an axis referring to internal practices in organizations, we find women in management, employees with disabilities. Having concrete data related to the inclusion of specific target groups in organizations allows VET providers to adjust their CSR policies and therefore to improve their social inclusion practices, giving them a better image and a better reputation. Finally, the last macro subject is excellence. The SOLITY benchmarking tool in its whole fosters VET providers' excellence, as it gives them the opportunity to analyze areas of activities where they excel and capitalize on them. But at the same time, it allows also discovering those areas where they need to improve their performances. If concepts of social utility and social inclusion did not take into consideration quality and excellence and the concrete tensions toward their achievement, they would have no reason to exist. As I said at the beginning of my presentation, applying the concept of social utility to vocational education and training empowers training providers and gives them the opportunity to establish connections and partnerships with policy and decision makers to implement initiatives at local, regional, and national level. During our researches on social utility, we found significant examples of good cooperation practices for social inclusion and return to employment. I would like to quote here a couple of examples. The first one is the HOPE initiative, Accommodation for Career Orientation to Employment. It's an initiative developed by the French government in partnership with AFPA, Agence nationale pour la formation professionnelle des adultes, and with other stakeholders. The initiative aims at responding to the specific difficulties encountered by many refugees in their social and professional integration, combining social and professional support. The second practice I would like to explore is the rating model of the Lombardy region in Italy. The model is used by the region not only to assess debt providers, but also to evaluate the access to finance training for vulnerable groups, specifically in relation to support for people with disabilities. To conclude, the message conveyed by SOLITY in terms of inclusiveness and excellence relies on the fact that social inclusion must take place in context of self-reflection. The idea of SOLITY was raised from here and from some concrete needs that professionals in the VET sector expressed as fundamental. The first one is that the future of vocational education and training requires a shared, common assessment-based approach to analyze in quantitative terms the impact of VET providers on the development of the European society and its future citizens. The second is that the future of vocational education and training requires a European vision. Thus, the importance of ensuring the transferability and flexibility and adaptability of the social utility model, while taking into consideration the specificities of the different national systems and capitalizing on existing good practices. In the wake of the recent development of direct engagement of citizens in the participation to the European Union decision-making process, SOLITY raised several key messages for policy development for the future. First, it not only highlights the tight bonds that training and education have with the socioeconomic growth, but also their direct benefits on our societies. Second, it raised the need for VET providers across Europe to speak a universal language made of a common framework of terms, tools, methodologies, goals at the European level. Third, it suggests the benefit of relying on a shared system for data management and for regular monitoring of the social impact of VET providers. So far, in Europe, there are no shared tools like SOLITY. Just think about how many opportunities for comparison, self-reflection, and collective actions would be created if all VET providers used SOLITY. This is the end of my presentation, but before closing, it seems a good moment for me to leave you with some practical information. Considering the highest potential of this tool, we at EVTA, together with our member organizations, in particular NAPNet, the SOLITY leader, and AFPA, the organization where the first idea of social utility came from, we have found a way to capitalize on the work done and give sustainability to the SOLITY model through the VENANCE initiative. VENANCE stands for VET European Networking Enhancement. It is funded by the Erasmus Plus program to strengthen the cooperation of networks and partnerships for vocational education and training. SOLITY as a project was formally closed in March this year, but as mentioned, its journey is not over yet. The benchmarking tool is currently available in English, French, German, and Italian. And thanks to VENANCE, we will keep on promoting the SOLITY model as a European tool, and this will be facilitated by the fact that soon the tool will be available in all European languages, and that a dedicated support service will be launched to assist the VET providers in their path towards excellence and quality. I warmly encourage VET professionals to visit the SOLITY website, undertake the self-assessment, and obtain their social utility score. To learn more, please do not hesitate to get in touch with us. Thank you all for your attention.